Hi, I'm Darrig Rennie, and this is a presentation I gave to the Hibiscus and Bays local board, my local board, in August this year. It's a 3-minute presentation, and I wanted to run you through it, show you what I said about the questioning the climate emergency that Auckland Council declared. And I asked the board members to join me in the middle here to let go of arrogance and cynicism, or let go of gullibility and naivety. So we don't end up victims of those things and end up trusting the wrong people. We learn the most when we're healthily skeptical and healthily trusting, meaning we know who to trust and we know who not to trust. Now, children and humanity, I believe, depend on us taking this position at this point in time. So the Auckland Council presented or acknowledged a climate or declared a climate emergency based on two facts, two things they said, two beliefs they wanted to say. And the first one was that the science is irrefutable, and that's based on the idea there's a 97% consensus. Most of us will probably be aware of Barack Obama's statement. 97% of scientists agree that climate change is real, man-made, and dangerous. And he got that idea from John Cook and John Cook's team. And they basically by examining 11,944 papers, what they did was they did word searches on the abstracts. They never read the whole papers in its entirety. But when they did that, they found that 66% expressed no view at all. So there you go, the first piece. You would think that if they're eliminating 66%, then how can they get 97? But they said of the remaining 34%, a full 33%, not of the 34%, but 33% of the remaining papers said that endorsed the idea that the consensus that greenhouse gases were at least just partly, responsible for some of the global warming. And that's what you get 97.1% from. You divide 33 by 34 and multiply it by 100, you get 97.1%. So only 64 of the 11,944 papers claim that humans have caused most of the global warming. And that's not 97%, it's 0.5%. That's a bit like the whole thing about relative risk for vaccines compared to absolute risk. But anyway, David Legates and his team read the original papers, so they took those 64 out of 11,944 papers that John Cook's team only did a word search on, and they read the whole paper. But only 41 of them explicitly stated that humans caused most of the warming since 1950. So 41 out of 11,944% is only 0.3%. So you can say that of the 11,944 climate science papers, 99.7% did not say that carbon dioxide caused most of the global warming since 1950. It was actually less than 1%, and not one paper endorsed a man-made global warming catastrophe. So that's where we need to seriously look at, when you look at the science correctly, then that 97% consensus doesn't stand up. I gave them a bunch of people, and I'll attach to this the document I gave them so you can see the scientists I recommend they look into, but there's nowhere near a 97% consensus, and far from the science being irrefutable, it's seriously refutable. Then we move to point 2, which was the other reason to declare a climate emergency was to limit global warming to the Paris Agreement target of 1.5 degrees or face an uncertain future. Now, here I drew their attention to the idea of these thermometer gauges. They use proxy measures to look at past temperatures. Temperature measurements have only been going on for a short while in human history. But this is worldwide history, and the proxy measures show that for most of that top left-hand graph shows that for most of the time there has been no ice on the poles. The blue graph lines are when the temperature dropped below a point where all of a sudden you have ice on the poles. All those red lines are times when there was no ice on the poles, so no polar ice caps at all. And the definition of an ice age is that ice exists on the poles. So we are still currently in an ice age. And when you look at that first green horizontal oval, that's the period when the dinosaurs were here, and we've all seen the movies where they show that life was super abundant in vegetation and animals and reptiles over that time. So they weren't phased by a slight degree in temperature. In fact, they were 20 degrees above current temperatures. If you look at that next green oval, the vertical one, that expands out into this top right-hand graph. And that's the time since the dinosaurs. And I've drawn a green line across there to show the time when below that green line, the red line should be in actually blue. So that's the same, give you the same idea of the top left. And you can see where, all of our ancestors that from a species today have survived through that period. And that was at least 16 degrees above today's temperatures. When you look at that condensation of the, this is in terms of millions of years, that graph, we're going to take the last little piece of it. We see where all those red lines, just bunch up together. We're going to take the last 400,000 years and we're going to expand it in that bottom left-hand graph. And you can see there our current temperatures have been exceeded at least by 3 degrees. We're in that last peak there on the right. But you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 other periods where the temperature has been at least 3 degrees warmer in the last 400,000 years. Now we're going to, and those are what's called interglacials. Remember, we're still in an ice age, and an interglacial is a period where it's a slightly warmer temperature than the bottom temperature. And you can see there we're in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th interglacial in the last 400,000 years. And interglacial is defined as, we're still in a glacial period, but this one is called the Holocene interglacial. And you'll see there's a little red triangle in that last blue peak there. And that's expanded out in this one on the bottom right. So that's where you can see this has been the temperature of the last 11,000 years of the Holocene interglacial. Remember, that's within an ice age, slightly warmer period within an ice age. And you see the first one was the Minoan, that green line going up, but the first warm period going back, a few of them, was the Minoan warm period, then the Roman warm period, then the medieval warm period, and we're currently in the modern warm period. And you can see that fateful 1.5 degrees was between the bottom of the Little Ice Age and the top of the Minoan warm period. And it's been historically known that warm periods are periods of plenty on planet Earth, and human beings and everything else thrives in those times. So 1.5 degrees warming is something to seriously welcome, not be seriously afraid of. So this is my last slide. I hope you can at least, I'm going to talk to the councillors about this, I hope they can at least begin to contemplate that the two main points for the Auckland City Council to have declared a climate emergency are at least questionable, and that we should work towards this being cancelled, saving ratepayers unknown millions of dollars at this point in time, and to limit excessive rate rises during a time of financial hardship. And I thank them for their time and attention. They did suggest I talk to the Planning and Environment Committee, and we're developing me and a couple of other people are developing a presentation on that. And I know I've gone longer than 3 minutes, but you can imagine how I whipped through that. And I will also expand this a little more in another presentation at a future time, not too far away, hopefully. But the idea of getting it to you is that you can share this with your friends. It was, most people don't actually know we're still in an ice age, and we really don't need to worry about 1.5 degrees, but we do need to worry about the people that are lying to us and listen to the scientists that are telling us the truth.